In today's tutorial, we're going to look at how you can really quickly create this sci-fi looking dice super easily in Blender, and we'll also learn how to animate it like this to get a fairly random look that loops as well. Unlike most of our other tutorials, we're going to keep the default cube. We're going to press tab to go into edit mode and then select our edge select over here or by pressing 2. Then we're going to press Ctrl B to add in a bevel and just pull it out a little bit till you get something that you think suits for you. Remember, we don't need to increase the segments by using our scroll wheel because we will be adding in a subdivision surface modifier later on. So I think this is good enough for me. Now we're going to go to face select and we're just going to select the 6 faces of the dice, and we're going to go ahead and press I twice so that we can inset along the individual faces so that all of the markings on the dice have some distance from the edge. So let's go about here and then click enter. Now we need a 3x3 grid on each of these faces. To do that, we're going to press Ctrl R and just place our cursor so that we get a loop cut and tap 2, enter, and enter again. So we're going to do that for all the 3 directions. So Ctrl R, place it here, 2, enter, enter. Then Ctrl R, this direction, 2, enter, enter. So now we have 9 faces on each of the sides. So what we can do now is go ahead and inset these even further so that we get our actual circles. To inset them, we're going to have to select all of them. So what we can do is press C for circle select and just increase the size of our circle using the scroll wheel till we cover all of them with one click. So we can just click and then deselect with the right mouse button. Then again, C, select, enter, C, select, enter, C, select, and when I say enter, I mean right mouse button. C, select, go to the next place, C, select, and once you have all of them selected, press I twice so that we can inset along individual faces, or I once, depending on when you see individual faces on. So you want it to be like this, and then just inset them to something like that, should be fine. Now we can select each of the faces individually and extrude them in. So we'll select the one with 1 and then E minus 0.1 and enter. Select these two for 2 faces, E minus 0.1, enter. Then over here for 3, select 3, E minus 0.1, enter. Then the one with 4, just select the 4 corners, E minus 0.1, enter. And then for 5, just select all of these, E minus 0.1, enter. And then for 6, you can select the 6 that you want, E minus 0.1, enter. Now this forms the basis of our cube, and we have to give all of these their own materials. So to do that, we have to select all of the ones that we just extruded inward. So just go ahead and select them like this for all of the different faces. Make sure you press shift while selecting to select multiple objects at once. So once you have all of them selected, you can go to our material properties over here and just add in a new material slot, press new and hit assign. Now the thing is that you might want it to be just like this, but I found it better if you press Ctrl and the plus on the numpad to increase the selection by 1 unit so that you get all of these insides and you assign all of those the second material. So we'll call these the dots material and the other one the outer material. So the outer material will be applied to all of the outer edges and the dots is applied to the dots. So if you actually go into the rendered viewport shading, you can actually change the dots color to whatever you want and you can see it update in real time. Now we can go ahead and apply the subdivision surface modifier. So we can go to our modifiers, search for a subdivision surface modifier, and just increase the levels to 4, the render to 4 as well. And there you now have your dice. Now, if you want a black and white dice, this is perfectly all right. You can always go ahead to our original outer material and just play around with the roughness a little bit, increase the white value all the way to 1, and make all of those changes based on what you prefer. But what I'll do is for the outside, I'm going to change the base color to black, and I'm also going to go to Object, Shade Smooth, and now I'm going to increase metallic to 0.8 and reduce the roughness to 0.3. And for the dots, I'm going to make it an emissive material. We're just going to increase the emission all the way to 1, make it a nice green emissive material, make the emission strength 5 or 10, and then we're going to go to our output properties, switch on bloom. Of course, change the intensity to 0.02 and clamp it at 4. And that makes the dice look a lot more sci-fi, what you wouldn't get in real life. So since you can do it in 3D, why not go ahead and do that? Now for the animation, we'll set our animation defaults, go to our output properties, change the frame rate to 30 frames per second, make the end frame 300 so that we get a 10-second long animation. Change the output folder to wherever you want it to be. Change the file format to FFmpeg video with the encoding set to MPEG-4 and an output quality of perceptually lossless. Then increase our timeline by clicking and dragging over here. Take our cube and just rotate it randomly. You can press R twice to get the trackball rotation and just place it however you feel like. And then press I, rotation. Now we're just gonna go every 60 frames, press R twice, and just rotate it quite a bit. Press I, rotation. Then go to frame 120 and do the exact same thing. Rotate in some manner, I, rotation, and then go to frame 180, rotate, I, rotation, frame 240, rotate, rotate, I, rotation. Then select our initial keyframe, Shift D, and move that all the way to 300. And that way, you're going to get something that perfectly loops. Now, you could be happy enough with this rotation, but in case you're not, you can always tap A to select everything, change from the timeline to the graph editor, then press Control, middle mouse button, and just scale everything into your view. Then press Alt Shift O to sample keyframes, and you see now there's a keyframe for every single position over here. And now you can press Alt O to just smoothen out the keyframes, and you can do this many times to make this very smooth. So now you get a nice smoother animation. Of course, if you don't want it to loop, you can just go ahead and keyframe the rotation values over here by adding drivers instead, and that'll manually allow you to go on for as long as you want while giving a fairly smooth animation of random rotation. Now the problem is that the direction is suddenly changing over here at frame 1. If you do want to fix that, what you can do is go to frame 0, then go to your timeline and just scale everything to something like 0.95, and then take this keyframe, the last keyframe there is, select it, and then Shift D to 300. Then go back to your graph editor, press Alt Shift O, select all of these as well, Alt Shift O, and now just box select this last bit, and then press Alt O to smoothen that out as well. So hopefully that will remove that super sharp turn. You can do the same thing at the start. So again, go to the timeline, go to the end, then scale everything in, scale something like 0.95. Make sure you have everything selected, scale 0.95, take the first keyframe, Shift D it off to frame 0, select both of these, go to the graph editor, Alt Shift O, and then box select quite a portion, and then press Alt O till it smooths out. So there you have your smooth animation. You can go ahead and add in a background. So we'll take our camera, Alt G and Alt R to clear location rotation, RX 90, then GY to bring it back, then press 0 again, GY till we have just the die, and then Shift A mesh will add in a plane at the back. So RX 90, GY, move it back, scale it up, and this is going to be our back plane. With our camera selected, we can go ahead and go to viewport display, passport out all the way to 1. In the plane, go to the materials, add in a new material, make the base color much darker. So this sort of a gray or black seems fine. And what you can do is just slightly increase the metallicness, reduce the roughness, increase the roughness, your own personal preference as what you want the background to be. Then we'll take the light and we'll just Shift D and move one down as well, so that we get some amount of lighting from the bottom just to add into those reflections. And we also want one to come from in front. So we'll just Shift D and place it somewhere like that, so that even the front is lit a little bit and we get these shadows on the back. Let me just GY and just move it around till you're happy with where it is. So I think that's all right. So that's our sci-fi cube. For the background, you can always go ahead and add in some more details to it. So we can go to the shader editor and add in a bump node and search for something like a Voronoi texture, change the randomness all the way to 0, and then take the distance and plug that right into the height, then take the normal, plug that into the normal, see what it looks like. We'll probably have to play around with the scale, maybe make it something like 20. Then you can add in a color ramp. Go ahead and make these exactly how you like. In case you don't want this sort of a circle, the circles would probably match the circles inside, but if you want it to be squares, you can go ahead and use the color factor instead, and that'll give you these nice squares. So that's all up to you and your own personal preference. I'll use the circles to match the circles inside the dice. So with that, I hope you learned something from this tutorial and you can use it to create different animations of your liking and use the cubes in any way you want. If you have any other questions or queries, comment them down below. And until the next video comes out, don't forget to stay creative.